Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Stephen Haggerty. Today I'm joined by the CEO and co-founder of Lick Home, Mr. Lucas London. How are you today, Lucas?
Hi, Stephen. Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. And like I just said before that we went live, two incredible names straight out the bat. So this is going to be a good show. But for those people that don't know about Lick Home and haven't heard about it, can you just give me an overview summary of what Lick Home is and does?
Yeah, sure. It's a pretty simple thesis. We spotted that there was a huge community online for people that were into home decor, DIY, design, people that were into color and decorating. It was huge. It was growing. It's young. It's engaged. But they tend to put their phones in their pockets and go to a hardware store on the weekend and purchase the product offline when obviously they're used to most other industries and most other purchases being online.
Mm-hmm.
So we felt that if we could create a brand that resonated with our target demographic, if we could simplify the product offering and solve that user experience, then we could bring a huge industry online. So, very simply, it's a kind of made.com for home decor. So anything kind of post-construction pre-furniture. So we sell paint, wallpaper, all the supplies you need to decorate, all around making it as simple as possible. And planning to go into new verticals soon.
Who's your target demographic? Because to be honest, straight out the bat, I love walking around B&Q.
Do
So you're
you?
taking that away from me with
You
Lick
know,
Home. But for
there's always
people,
one.
yeah, there's always one. There's always one. The smell when I walk into a Wix, I'm just like, oh, I'm home. But for you, who are you targeting? Who are the main demographic that use Lick Home? And second question to that, are they the demographic that you originally went after, or has it been sort of a surprise about who uses it?
I think definitely a surprise. So we obviously launched with the plan to get young professionals, young families, mostly Greater London, the sort of early adopters. We kind of had this awareness that we wanted to target and resonate with a much younger demographic because we knew as they got older they were unlikely to be going into hardware stores. But we obviously had to sell products,
Mm.
before they got to the age when they were starting to decorate. So we initially went for that demographic, but what surprised us is the breadth in terms of across the UK and across all ages. And I mean, we launched on the day the government put us under lockdown, so I'm sure that's hugely impacted by the circumstances. But we've seen the online adoption from an older demographic that we didn't think would adopt.
Really? Wow. So I mean, obviously that was pure coincidence that you launched on the day of lockdown. Well, I'm hoping it was, unless you had a time machine.
No, absolutely. I mean, the truth is we just went to launch as quick as possible,
Yeah,
and uh, and that happened to be the day, and it was a good distraction from what was going on outside, obviously.
and a
But yeah, exactly.
perfect timing. For you, if I take you back before launch, how was the pre-launch phase? How was you and your co-founder? Did you know each other beforehand? Talk to me about the story about how Lick Home was formed through those conversations.
Yeah, so I pre-Lick, I was working for a startup called Airtasker, which was an Australian marketplace where you
Mm-hmm.
found cleaners and handymen and gardeners online. And that was a large business in Sydney, and I was the first hire outside Sydney to launch the UK market. And was there for 2 years and led the international expansion of that business. And I was working with Sam Bradley, who's my co-founder there. Um, and the business decided that it was, and I was part of that decision to centralize the international back to Sydney, and we were asked to move back to Australia, and I probably regret this at some point, but decided that that lovely way of life wasn't for us, and that we'd stay in London. And we had this idea, and it was really exposure to decorating industry through the decorators on our platform that we realized that you had this absolutely enormous industry, but none of the purchase was happening online, and the
Mm-hmm.
offline experience was a frustrating one for most consumers. So saw this, which is pretty unique in 2019, 2020 to
Yeah,
have
yeah.
such a large
Like you said,
industry
there's
that's
very few industries that don't have some sort of online presence like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the dynamics of the market. Businesses, large, for instance, paint businesses, rely on third-party brick and mortar retailers as their primary customers. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't have this relationship with the consumer. And then the high-end boutique retailers position themselves for a much higher end of the market. So it was just a really exciting problem to solve because it wasn't just a one problem to solve. It was multiple parts of the user experience, parts of the product offering, and the growth strategy in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then from there, it was just a mad rush to do our pre-seed and most recently our seed and get launched.
Fantastic. Am I right in thinking that the products are branded Lick on the site?
Yeah, yeah,
What
absolutely.
what was that decision behind that then? Because obviously you probably could have got like a partnership with Deluxe and gone down that route. Why did you decide to make that brand continually go through from immediately from there on your website to when they get the delivery through to the house?
Yeah, there was definitely a consideration to do a marketplace, but I think we were looking at what Mano Mano was doing in Europe,
Hmm.
and we're impressed with their growth and thought they were succeeding. But on top of that, with this market, most the businesses and brands just don't resonate with a broad and young demographic. I mean, are young people resonating with businesses like Deluxe?
Hmm.
It's driven by quite industrial businesses and businesses that have been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
So we felt the huge opportunity was to create a kind of, I guess, Glossier-esque type brand where we could resonate with the person and their project and their home and really speak to a very broad demographic. And that was as big as opportunity as bringing the industry online.
Yeah. I mean, when you go on the Lick Home website, immediately it has a feel to it that connects with, I think, a certain type of person. And the fact that it is all branded Lick Home just makes sense. I think a marketplace would have been a potentially great move, but an odd
Mm.
move if you think about a brand as a whole. For you, then, launching on lockdown day, which I'm in a couple of years' time, you'll probably look back at and laugh at, but launching at lockdown on the day of lockdown, how did that impact the business? Because a lot of other founders, a lot of other people probably would have gone into slight panic mode. For you guys, I guess, this business was made for that time in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely went into panic mode. So we sent.
A
I
little bit of
remember
panic
sent.
mode.
Yeah, exactly. I remember sending out an email to our investors saying, we've stopped all spend, we've stopped all our plans. We're going to see what happens, and then kind of 10 minutes later, hang on a minute, this market might be right for us. We're charging.
At least
But
it wasn't one of the investors emailing you back going, "What the hell are you doing? You need to go, go, go."
yeah, exactly. But it was just that lack of visibility that I mean
Yeah.
everyone was experiencing. But so aside from the fact that people were bored at home decorating, and it was great that we were able to keep people busy during this period, what we saw was like massive online adoption. So we saw
Hmm.
pre-launch about 4% was purchases were happening online, and then obviously during COVID, 100% was, and then that was scaled even further by the fact that consumers were now focusing on their home because of remote working. So it really created a very, very unique circumstance to launch the business, which is why we brought our seed round forward. That said, we had huge supply chain issues
Yeah.
because we didn't have a huge amount of working cap to invest in stock. We did not forecast this kind of level of growth. So actually, during lockdown periods, we have spent most of the time actually, throttling growth and not spending on digital and not spending on paid acquisition, and eventually putting everything out of stock because our supply chain just slowed and we didn't have the stock to that we needed.
Mm.
So it's bittersweet in the sense we got an absolutely great start and have had brilliant traction, but there was definitely more opportunity there. But on the other side, we might have too much growth, and we had to grow the right way through
Yeah.
customer support and
Yeah.
operations. So yeah, it's been an interesting but many ways a positive experience.
Oh, for sure. And I suppose you wouldn't have wanted that peak to be so ridiculously high that when things start leveling out again, your numbers would just be all over the place in terms of growth stats.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole thesis of Lick is that it's making it's a what was a frustrating experience is become a really enjoyable and a simple one. And if we had, slammed it, then we would have had lots of unhappy customers, and the whole thesis would have failed, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. What learnings did you get though? Obviously, even though it wasn't perhaps the best timing, or there was the best timing, who knows really, but for you guys to be able to launch the Lick Home in that environment where, like you said, everyone is at home, everyone is looking at their environment, everyone is wanting to decorate. What did you guys learn from that launch that you've adopted moving forward in the next stage of growth?
Oh, there are so many things. I mean, the first thing would be to plan for the unexpected from a stock point of view. So, we were on the side of being extremely careful managing our stock, but being aware that supply chains can be disrupted, and you don't know what is going to happen with demand. That's a big learning. But there's so many interesting intricacies to how we've launched that's been created by the environment. So, for instance, remote working is all we've known. The team's known, like most of the team haven't met each other in person, and
the original intention was to, I'm guessing, have an office,
yeah,
a central
absolutely.
base.
But now it would seem a strange move to move into an office now,
Yeah.
and then that's also on the content we're creating. So we're pretty much 90% user generated content, and that's created this wonderful community of people that are into decorating and want to share their experience. And that's because we couldn't do any campaigns, we couldn't do any brand shoots, so we had to rely and encourage this content creation from our community, which has kind of built the brand. So in so many ways, the circumstances has created the business as well.
Yeah. What
Which
a lovely
is
way
very
to
unique.
grow the brand in such early days, though, to be able to see your customers using the paints, using the wallpapers, seeing their finished product, seeing the process. A lot
Oh
of
yeah,
so many other brands that you can think of in the early days, especially. Obviously, that would all be sort of staged and, like you said, photo shooted out. You guys have had this very unique entry into instant sort of customer images, which is fantastic.
yeah, absolutely. And I started my career in finance at a hedge fund for about 5 years, and I don't know what value I added there, but but here where you're seeing, people buying your product and loving it, using it, and also hugely impactful, people changing their home. It can have a massive impact on their lives for the positive. So that's a great thing to be part of.
Yeah, for sure. That kind of brings me on to one of my next questions then. For you, how does it feel running a business as a founder, as opposed to obviously with task with was it Airtasker?
Airtasker, yeah.
With Airtasker, even though you were high up in the company, VP International, it wasn't your baby, I guess is the right way to phrase it. How does it feel with Lick Home? It's yours. It's you and your co-founders. Is there any difference for you?
I mean, massive amounts of difference. I think, when I left the hedge fund, I spent the last 5 or 6 years working in startups, and because I was entrepreneurial, and many of these businesses I would treat like they were my own. So I had those same stresses, but then I had the added stresses of working for someone, trying to impress someone, and I feel now there's always also that sort of relief that the decisions are your decisions, and you can go at them with confidence, and it feels almost less stress in a way than I was experienced previously. I think Airtasker was an additional stress because of the time difference and the traveling that was required. I spent about 350 hours on a plane in 2 years.
Wow.
So that definitely was quite exhausting, but it's just so rewarding. I mean, and I've kind of spent the last few years trying to learn as much as I can and gain as many skills as I can, and it all feels like it's kind of come together in a way at Lick, and it's extremely rewarding.
Do you think, as a CEO co-founder, what has been one of the biggest learnings that you've had to bring on board from your previous experience, but with that difference of sort of the buck stops with you?
I think definitely, yeah, confidence in your decisions and bold decisions, and there's been a few such as moving to remote working very quickly, or launching at a time when we potentially weren't ready and at a difficult time. And the team needs the CEO to make those bold decisions and have that confidence so they can trust. So that's a huge part of it. For me, like one of the biggest learnings is the co-founder. I mean, Sam, aside from being one of the nicest guys around and very happy permanently, which is very helpful, complements my skills in such a great way that there's no way I'd ever consider doing it without Sam, or would advise anyone to do it without a co-founder, because it's such an enormous amount of work to do that getting the right founder is so important. And that's without doubt the biggest learning I've had from the experience.
Did you and Sam have, sit down and have that conversation about roles and how you're going to have a look at the business, or was it quite a natural integration into your different roles?
I think it was particularly natural because he worked for me at Airtasker, so we had that kind of dynamic already in play. He has no ego, and he allows me to have an ego, and it just works exceptionally well. I think because we worked under that environment, it was particularly good. But yeah, we've definitely had lots of conversations on where our role should sit and where we can get the most value.
Fantastic. So what's next for you guys? What's next for Lick Home? What have you got planned? What have you got up your sleeve? What are we going to see?
So we're building a phenomenal team now, and you can expect the work we're doing to sort of level up, I would say. I think we're planning to launch a new vertical in the coming months. We're planning to launch with a partner, which is extremely exciting, and we plan to go into Europe early next year. So we just raised 3 million led by Felix Capital, which has been a great result. They're one of the best consumer funds in Europe, in our opinion, so a great partner because of their consumer and brand focus. So we've achieved a good amount in 4 or 5 months.
Incredibly short period of time.
So it'll be it's exciting to see what we can do with the team now that we've got in place, and with the capital, and it should be a particularly exciting year.
With that in place, with the capital and the backing, does that make you more comfortable as a CEO, as a founder, or does that put some fire in your belly?
I mean, I actually I've always been a little scared of raising too much money. I've seen businesses get stuck and being part of those.
Of horror stories.
Yeah, because you lose all innovation when you've got capital. Your burn gets too high. You do it at too high valuation. You have to grow into that without a mistake. So it was a pretty hard decision. We could have raised more, but our view really was the dynamics of the market and the fact that we were actually close to being a profitable business, and that we were just leaving money off, on the table, that it was the right move, rather than we were raising 3 million to see if we could whack paid acquisition or see if we could find new growth. So it definitely made sense, and time will tell if it was the right decision. But having the support of Felix and people like the ex-COO of Farfetch, Andrew Robb, definitely puts fire in our belly, and I think it's ours to mess up. We have everything in place.
It's yours to take and for yours to mess up.
Exactly.
But no doubt that you guys were incredibly successful.
Thank you very much. Well, we hope so, and we've definitely got now the team to execute, so everything should be in place. But who knows? I think if anything's taught us in the last 9 months, who knows what's ahead of us?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. On an earlier podcast, that's the big thing. It's like we're in this. The world is always in that state of unknown, but I think that what the last couple of months have shown you is that you are really in that unpredictable state at any time. It's just we've got to manage what we can manage right now, and with what you've just said in terms of how you're going to grow, and I think with a business like yours, it is the perfect time. The mentality of purchasing has changed a lot in the past couple of months. people that have never shopped online before, shopping online, like you said. I can't believe the switch on those stats in terms of that 4%. That's just amazingly great for you, but an incredible stat for everyone else. One of my final questions then, Lucas, is how can people find out more about Lick Home? How can people use the service? What is the experience like for them?
Yeah, so the first thing to do is, check us out on Instagram. You get a really good feel of our brand, our community, and start getting engaged in our community across our social. And we've got, a Facebook group that's worth joining if you're interested in all things home decor. We sell these adhesive sticker samples that come to your door next day, and they're only £1, and they're a great way to check out the color and move the colors around your house. So worth checking those samples out and seeing what colors you like and getting tempted into decorating. But definitely getting part of the community if it's something you're interested via our social channels is it'd be great to have the audience there.
Love that. Love that you're building a real community as well. I think that's something that is going to just help your brand moving forward, especially those avid DIYers. Once they like a product, they'll be shouting it from the rooftop.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. I mean, the community is a bit of a buzzword these days, but without doubt, the engagement we see from our followers and the excitement we have over the product, it's brilliant.
Great. Lucas, listen, thank you so much for coming on Founders 365. Congratulations on the success of Lick Home in such a short amount of time. And I think it's really built foundations for such a strong growth plan now.
Great. Thanks, Stephen. Really appreciate you having us on.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. This has been Founders 365.
Cheers.